Guys, I gotta tell you. I will be absolutely shocked if the Democrats maintain power in Congress after the midterms. Now, I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Republicans will win the House. And the Senate has been a toss-up, but even now I'm just like, I would be surprised even if the Republicans lose the Senate, okay? Because the Democrats are just doing that bad. And the reason why is because they refuse to acknowledge reality that literally everybody can see except the Democrat politician, which is that their agenda is not popular. People do not agree with their far left woke extremism, especially the extremism that they're pushing on kids in schools. But for whatever reason, the Democrats continue to go along with it as if it's a winning issue when it's simply just not. And some evidence of that, right, is this interview that I stumbled across from CBS in which the analyst, the pollster, was stunned when a focus group of bipartisan parents, I mean parents that are Democrat, Republican, and independent, essentially came out here and said that the biggest problem in our country today, one of the biggest problems, is wokeness being pushed on kids in schools. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
Biggest concerns about raising children in America right now. John?
The whole woke culture affecting our children. All these elementary schools and middle schools having woke culture pushed on them from the LGBT plus community for sexual identity and gender. We should be pushing the actual school studies, math, social studies, science, not, gender studies or sexual identifications.
What have you seen that makes you concerned?
In the district that I live in, there hasn't been really anything going on. But I'm originally from Iowa, and just recently there was some protests at an Iowa school for bringing in a transgender art show.
So you're not concerned about your kids in Texas. You're seeing this on the news. That's what's raising your concern?
Yes.
LaShawn, I'd like to get you to weigh in on this.
I can also agree with some of his points. I really would say sex education. I feel like some things, are brought to the children's attention they wouldn't even think about.
And you have 8 kids. I imagine you have some pretty specific ideas in your mind when you're speaking about this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But children they're really influenced. You can teach them one thing at home, but when they go to school, they're just as much influenced by their teachers and their surroundings. And we should have more input, the parents, of what we want them to learn.
Stephanie, what's your biggest concern? And if you want to react to any of that, go ahead.
I agree. The other issue has to do with COVID. There's less teachers in the school district. And because of that, they have student choice school days. So the students can choose whether or not they want to go to school that day because there's not enough teachers or bus drivers to get them there. And so I worry about their education.
When you said your top issue was crime, what did you have in mind?
Robberies and, murders, stabbings. And it's like every time you turn on the news, somebody killed their baby and, they're losing their mind. It's like people are everywhere doing everything. And it's like they're out of control. Nobody's stopping them.
John talked about how concerned he was about the border in his state of Texas and migrants coming into the country.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with helping, but we have more problems here in our country. I feel like there's so much focus on helping immigrants, and it's not enough focus on the people here that might need assistance.
Do you blame your mayor and your governor for that, or do you blame Washington for that?
It's everybody, everyone. Washington, the mayor, I mean, it's like they help who they want. Certain people, certain groups of people, they'll help them, and then they'll neglect someone else.
Often when we do these focus groups, we have people from different party affiliations disagreeing with each other, but I'm hearing all of you echo a lot of the same concerns and agreeing with each other. None of you are very optimistic about the country right now.
No.
Yeah, That's damning, right? That's extremely damning because all of the issues that they're concerned about are issues that the Democrats are doing terribly on, right? It is issues that the Democrats are on the opposite side of the aisle from the rest of the American public, okay? Again, like wokeness being pushed in schools. Democrats are 100% for that. There's been no Democrat that has come out here and said, yo, I am against kids being sexualized in school. And they actually said that if you're not for kids being sexualized in school, then you're anti-LGBTQ. You're a transphobe, you're a homophobe, and you also might be a white supremacist, okay? You might be a white supremacist domestic terrorist, right? This is what the Democrat Party has said about parents who are concerned about wokeness being pushed in schools. And they use the same playbook when it comes to other issues as well, too, in which people disagree with Democrats, aka they acknowledge reality, which is that it's a disaster. Like, for example, crime. If you come out here and you say that, hey, crime is rampant in these inner liberal cities, they're out of control, it is lawless because of these far left, woke, progressive criminal justice reform policies that allow criminals to run free in the streets, then the Democrats are going to call you racist. They're going to say you're racist for acknowledging reality.
Part of the Republican playbook, as you well know, is to point a finger at large, diverse cities and say large, diverse cities are lawless. Does that remind you of anything? You ever heard that before? Those of you in the press are students of history. You're aware of the Southern strategy. What we see here is the same old playbook, which is about coded and racist messaging. It's about blaming the biggest city in Pennsylvania with the most diverse population for having the same national struggle that we have with gun violence everywhere, and even having increases that are less than the committee's counties.
Yeah, so that is John Fetterman-backed DA Larry Krasner basically telling you that, hey, if you acknowledge that crime exists and that it is rampant in these inner liberal cities, you are a racist, okay? That is their way of getting you to shut up about the fact that these Democrat-run cities are failing, okay? And speaking of John Fetterman, another thing that the Democrats don't want to acknowledge is the fact that they are running candidates. Specifically, you have the President of the United States and John Fetterman, who simply are not mentally capable. They don't have the mental capacity to govern. They should not be in office. And that is something that the voters are seeing as well.
Hard to watch him speak because you want the words to flow. You want him to be able to have that ease of communication. I don't have a problem with the fact that he needs closed captioning. I think that way for him, and if he becomes my representative, I'd want him to be clear as to what the other party was saying. So if he needs that assistance now, I think that it's a genuine ability to work through a disability that he's having today. Will he need it next month, 6 months, forever? I don't know.
The one thing that I got to say that you did say is you don't know if he's going to need that 6 months from now or the rest of his life, and neither do we, and neither do his doctors at this point.
Correct.
That's the sad part, and that's why I think somebody should have stepped in and said, hey, this just isn't the right time, John. In a year, in 6 years from now, and I'll believe me, I'm not saying anything for them. I think them parading him out there is a sore eye for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and naturally, right, what has that resulted in regards to the polls? Well, lo and behold, races that Democrats should be winning or that they should win, they're either outright losing or it's almost a virtual tie because of their refusal to acknowledge reality.
Good evening, Natasha. And the Keystone State has been one of the most decisive states over these past few election cycles. And week to week, we have seen this race continue to tighten. The latest aggregate of polls from 538 has John Fetterman leading Dr. Oz by just over 2 percentage points. That's pretty astounding considering some of these polls we saw over the summer, which showed Fetterman at times owning a near double-digit lead. So perhaps it's no surprise that we've seen former President Barack Obama cut a new ad endorsing John Fetterman. That ad hit the Pennsylvania airwaves yesterday. Take a look at this.
So when the fate of our democracy and a woman's right to choose are on the line, I know John will fight for Pennsylvanians. you can count on John Fetterman. Make sure he can count on you.
But it's not just the 44th president who's lending his voice to this race. This has become one of the most closely watched races in the entire country. Last month, we saw former President Donald Trump here in the Commonwealth. We saw President Joe Biden here just a couple of days ago. The reality is that this race is going to play a large role in determining who controls the United States Senate. That's what so many people have been focused on. But there are a lot of Pennsylvanians who are primarily focused on those local, everyday, kitchen table issues. Take a listen.
We've got all the issues socially, economically in our region. I'm really concerned about violence, not just on the global scene, but locally. Our schools are really hurting, our public schools.
AKA not concerned about democracy, right? And not concerned about so-called women's rights, right? Which are things that the Democrats are campaigning on, right? They're campaigning on things that people don't care about. And they have no solutions for the things that people do care about. But when we're talking about the issues of schools, okay, and we're talking about just some of the like simple stuff, like wokeness being pushed in schools, these are layups. This is an easy thing for Democrats to say, hey, you know what? We're doing bad on inflation, the border, crime, but let's actually score some W's on easy issues like, I don't know, not sexualizing children in schools, right? Again, Democrats, they can't even score a layup on that. They just miss it. Poop, miss. Easy stuff. Easy stuff. And it's because that party is simply out of touch. They're not in touch with reality, guys. Right? And that is going to be the main reason for their downfall. It's absolutely stunning to watch. Everybody in the world is telling them we don't care about these issues, but Democrats keep coming out here and telling people, no, you do care about these issues. Right? And if you disagree with us, you're homophobic, you're sexist, you're racist, you're yada, 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 instead of actually acknowledging reality. And the best part about this, guys, is that historically, this is what the Democrats have relied on. They've relied on this victimhood, social justice politics to dig themselves out of a hole in order to get votes. That's what they did with Trump. Well, Trump bad, Trump evil, despite the fact that, again, the economy was great. You know, everything was great. We had the lowest unemployment. We were respected on the world stage. The border was a lot more under control. We didn't have this crime crisis going on across all these cities under Trump. The country was in much better shape under Trump, but they convinced the American people that, oh, racism, sexism, homophobia, such a big problem. Such a big problem, right? They convinced people of that stuff and people bought into it. And they went out and voted against their own interest, their own economic best interest. Because Democrats played the social justice card. But it's just funny to see how that's not working anymore. People realizing this stuff doesn't matter. The stuff that Democrats are campaigning on, it simply doesn't matter. It does not matter. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.